at clubs. We've got a fantastic host this evening, Rebecca Knowles from Stockport Harriers, who is going to share her practice over about 35 minutes or so. And then if we've got any Q&A at the end, we'll do that. But throughout the session, if you have any questions, please feel free just to drop them in the comment box below, and we'll answer them there and then for you. But that's probably enough talking from myself. We'll pass it over to Rebecca, and hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you, Nick. Hello, Anya. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm going to just talk a little bit about an event we did earlier in the year, which was to help us improve our track and our facility. We're an athletics club based in Stockport, which is in Greater Manchester. We've got 350 members, and we manage our stadium on behalf of the council. When we came out of the gloom of the winter, we kind of had a really good hard look, most of the committee members, and we thought we really need to start scrubbing up and getting everything tidy and organised for the summer. We weren't really sure what events we were going to host, but we didn't think probably we wanted to host any events with the state of everything as it was. We had a lot of moss and a lot of sort of overgrown grass. So we thought, right, we do. We decided that we were going to run like a big tidy up event. There was a big list of jobs that needed attention. We had a long spreadsheet of jobs that, oh, sorry, thank you, Nick, for that. We had a really enjoyable cross-country season, and we really wanted to continue some of that ethos at our home track. We had a lot of people coming along and chatting, and we had a really sociable thing. So we thought, now we've got lots of new members and we're coming into a new season, we'll see if we can capitalise on that and put on a volunteer event to help us clean up the track. So a small group of committee members initiated and led on the event, including me, and we made a start on that. Because we had a lot of the positive winter feedback about the community feel in the gazebo. We have a pretty good gazebo at cross country, and we have hot chocolate and cakes, and we thought we'd use that as a little bit of a hook to try and get people in. So we then sat down and thought, what do we do to create the event? And we'd never really done an event at the club before. We had quite a few members who had created sort of task lists and things, but we thought, right, who we're going to get involved. So we had a core group just of committee members who had an assessment of the track and decided which jobs were going to need to be done. We then decided that we needed to start publicising, probably about after we'd set the date, which was a sort of early summer date. We settled on June the 1st. So about 6 weeks before that, we started putting posters out. It was actually quite difficult for us to contact our members, and I think most clubs may have a similar problem. We didn't have any direct way of contacting all of our members, which just seems absolutely crazy now. But what we did was we started putting up posters. We used very old-fashioned methods. We just printed some posters out and put them on the wall in the clubhouse. We started talking to people. We put some things out on, like communications out on Facebook and on Twitter, and people started talking about it a little bit. And oh, sorry, I've lost my place then. People started talking about it, and then they were asking how they could get involved. And what we did was we consulted an existing list of all our required tasks, surveyed the facility, and opted for those tasks that would have the most impact on the appearance of the facility. Sorry. Oh, there's one of the little posters. So how did we organise the tasks and roles? Once we'd done our list, we assessed what materials we were going to need. Oh, I've missed a bit. Hold on. So we started publicising our event about 6 weeks before the big day, and we started with all the posters, I've mentioned that, and frequent reminders on Facebook and Twitter. Now, simple posters do the job really easily. They can be created in Word or in Publisher, Keep the message consistent as well as eye-catching. Remind people you need them right up until the day of the event. That's really important. And I found a countdown was really useful. I kept putting things out going, you've only got so many days, and putting notices on the numbers were counting down on the clubhouse wall, and that makes people start talking about it. Make sure all the posters and all that info goes on social media. Now, once you've chosen all your tasks, you've got to resource them. And that's where your advanced planning is really essential. We decided we wanted a specific colour of paint to paint our containers. We were going for a sort of fashionable battleship grey, but the particular colour that we wanted had quite a long lead-in time, so we had to order that quite a lot in advance. You couldn't have probably just got that at the last minute, so you need to make sure you've got everything in place. So you need quantities of all those materials, and all of those tools need assessing in advance, so you've got everything available on the day. Now, one big question for us was, how many people are coming? Because we didn't know how many people would come. We decided we were going to arrange the day as a drop-in so that there was no pressure on people to sign up, and if they had time, they could just come along. And when you're doing a first event, that's probably the best way of doing it, because people are more relaxed and they come in their own time. Some people just came over lunch, some people came in the afternoon. So arranging your resources can be tricky because you don't know how many volunteers you're going to get on the day. So what we did is we resourced all the very specific tasks, which was the painting and some of the cleaning, as those resources could be utilised anyway, and it wasn't going to waste too much money. If we were left with them, we could use them up. We then asked our helpers to bring along tools for gardening and other equipment, which meant we avoided having maybe 50 dustpan and brushes or gardening trowels or garden spades. And there's always other jobs that you can fill up depending on people's preference if they've brought their own tools. So after you've got your event planned and you know you've done all your resourcing for all your equipment, it does help to have an event coordinator for the day itself. It's much better if one person can oversee the task allocated and then delegate the jobs as needed. You need to keep an eye on all your helpers, and you need to make sure everyone's looked after and feels valued. It should be an exciting day, really. It shouldn't be a dull and drudgery. There should be little moments of pleasure during the day where people are working on their little tasks. They should know that they're going to get cups of tea and drinks of water, and it's really important to ensure that people to make sure that people want to volunteer next time you need them. If they've had a good day, they'll be more than happy to come back. Now, there's lots of things that you need to have on the day. The format of the day will become clear, but the equipment you need to plan in advance. The risk assessment is really important. We haven't got a sample risk assessment on the PowerPoint, but we could perhaps provide one later, Nick, I think, if we can do that. You need to really go through all the tasks and see what possible hazards there are going to be. If it's wet, it might be slippy. You need to take precautions, and you need to warn people. If you're using dry material, if you're gardening, it can be dusty, so you might need to get masks. So you need to be really prepared in advance for that, and when your volunteers arrive at the beginning of the day, the best thing to do is to get them to sign in on a sign-in sheet, and also note their time. I'll come back to that later. When they sign in on that signing in sheet, you have a run through of the risk assessment, and then everybody signs the sheet so you know that they've seen or they're aware of the risk assessment. Because you need to make sure that you add any concerns to your risk assessment, because you're aiming to reduce, minimise or eliminate any of these risks, because you don't want all your volunteers going home with a crick back or a bad neck. Bad backs might not want to do tasks like digging or moving rubbish, and our volunteers seem to be very upfront about telling us if they had any physical injuries or problems. So you can just adapt your tasks and your jobs, especially if you're using hazardous chemicals, and would be paints or anything that's going to make dust. You do need to be extra careful. So if you do run your day like a drop-in, a drop-in like we did, you need to add a note to the sign-in area that will allow people to know that they must read the risk assessment themselves, and then when they sign that sheet, it should be signed once they've read it. So you maybe want somebody just on duty when people come, because they'll probably come and find the coordinator. So that coordinator is really important. They need to make sure that people get their names on that list, because you're going to need that for some of your data, so you know how many hours you've had worked and how much value that is to you. So the next thing to make sure is you need to look after your helpers during the day. You need to make sure they have regular breaks where needed. You need to encourage them to work at their own pace. I know this stuff's all obvious, but sometimes you don't think about it at the time. Maybe add a bit of a warm-up at the start. You don't want an army of injured, strained helpers after the event, especially not if they're hoping to go running at the weekend. I always do a coffee and a biscuit round in the morning, and then we have a lunch break. Now, we did provide food for our volunteers. The first tidy up day, we did a sort of low level, we just did a hot dog and maybe some biscuits. And then the next time we did something more significant. People were surprisingly grateful for just a small offering. You can provide a full lunch, or you could ask people to bring something to share and have a bit of a buffet. We've done a bit of a mixture of people bringing things and us providing things, which seems to be the most popular. We always ask people to bake cakes and bring them along. This is a really great way for people to share their other skills, and everyone loves home baked cake. Also, be mindful of food allergies.
Rebecca, just on the
Yes.
on the format of the day, that was really useful with that side of thing. Could you illustrate kind of what type of activities you did to maintain the track, or to clean it up? So you talked about kind of the tools you've used and so on, but what were the kind of the say the top 5, 6 type of tasks, what you did to clean the track?
Right, let me just advance that slide.
Yep.
Which is that one. Okay. So can you see that? Can everybody see that?
Anya, is that okay for you? Yeah, brilliant. Yeah,
brilliant. So the major task that we wanted to deal with was to remove the grass and the weed growth from the track edge, which created a clear edge and prevent regrowth while creating walkway around the track. Because our track doesn't have like a concrete path around it. The grass just grows straight onto the track, which is really not what you want. We had planned to have the track cleaned the week after we did the cleanup. So we were really, really keen to get that grass off there. And it was quite a physical job. I don't think it had probably been done for about 18 months. So that was the main job. And we didn't have anybody specific to that job on our task list. The next job was to remove and check all equipment per inventory. Now, we had an inventory of all our equipment, and we asked one of our coaches if she'd be in charge of that, and that's why there are initials on that task priority list. So they were coming down in the order of things we wanted to do. Continue to weed and restore shot put area. Now, our shot put area was quite weedy and overgrown, and that needed really weeding and sort of raking to get rid of all the debris off there. Then tidy grass around the long jump area, that's still an ongoing issue. Remove weed growth from hard standing areas. All of our tarmac around the edge was quite degraded and it was getting a lot of weeds. So basically, that was actually the most popular job. People just came along with their long garden hoe. They scraped the weeds and the moss off, and then they just swept them up and got rid of them. And it was really popular. And lots of our helpers now say, if we have, once the weather goes nice, if we've got some tools, they will continue keeping on top of that just on club nights when they're just there with their children. Water and replant. Plant pots, we've got a couple of display pots at the front of the clubhouse, and we changed those sort of going into winter and going into summer. They needed doing. Remove all the rubbish and scrap material to designated areas. Now, for some reason, people have just been dumping things, probably, I don't know how long even for, but we had ever such a lot of scrap metal and other rubbish. So what we did is we relocated that to an easier place for it to be collected by the scrap metal people. Now, then we had additional tasks, which was to clear all the plant growth from the fence line and Fred Perry Way. We've actually got part of the Fred Perry Way, which is a local footpath that's quite a long one that goes round the outside of our track. It was completely impassable. Now, it's not really our job to do that, but the brambles were coming across and coming into the track, so we've started to clear that, and we will be continuing that. Clear area to the rear of the clubhouse, that had just become a dumping ground, so that's been cleared. And then install logs and create a dead hedge. We didn't get round to doing the dead hedge, but we've installed some like an informal log seating area just in one of the treed grass bits at the front, which is a nice place for the younger juniors just to sit and have their coaches meetings. It's a bit forest schooly, a bit woodlandy, and it's really quite cute. Even now in the winter, it's quite nice. So that was the list on our second tidy up day task. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. I've just unmuted myself.
Right, so some stats from our first volunteer day. We had 51 volunteers took. Has it come back now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Nice and clear. Yeah.
So stats from our day, we had 51 volunteers took part. Now, bearing in mind, we had no idea who was going to come. We knew that there was a core of maybe half a dozen or 7 people. And we were like, well, we can get stuff done just with those people. But for 51 people to turn up in the first Saturday of June, we were absolutely blown away by that. The total hours of volunteering was 200, over 200 hours. It equated to, I think, a 27.5 day month, and the in-kind value to us was just over £3,000, and all we spent on that day was £229.50, which is pretty good return on that investment. So that was why we were really encouraged to do a second day. On our second day, it absolutely chucked it down from the minute we got there till the minute we finished. It was absolutely torrential, but we still had 31 volunteers. So people are keen to come and help. Now, there's a couple of other little points that go along with, I have mentioned, make it informal. Make it informal and allow people just to drop in. They might have 2 hours after their children have been training. It's quite good to do it on a training day as well, actually, when you know people will be around and they have to come. They might stay for an extra hour, because every little really adds up and helps. You must have your risk assessment in place. That's really important. I would not do a day like this without an event coordinator. Your event coordinator is the one person who actually doesn't do any specific jobs. They're the person that makes sure all the admin is done, that people sign in, that people are happy, to go around and just make sure people are okay, nobody's overworking, nobody's getting too wet or too cold or bored, because you can get bored doing the same job. Some people just like to do one specific thing and get that job finished, but sometimes people just want a bit of a change. Always let your volunteers choose a job from that list, and you'll get more buy-in from them and they'll take more responsibility. What we're going to do the next time, actually, and I'll come back to this probably at the end, is we're going to ask our volunteers, or we're just going to ask our members if there's any jobs that they'd like to do and would they be interested in coming and doing them, because quite a few people actually said on the day, oh, that little bit has really been annoying me. I'm really happy that I've managed to deal with it, or tidy it up, or clean it, or paint it, whichever it was. So it's really good to let people choose what they want to do. Also, create like a timeline or a milestone plan for your event. So kind of track back, set your date, track back in time, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, and decide how you're going to put the publicity out so that you've got a bit of a plan to work to. So at the very beginning, you need to just publicize it or get people to save the specific date. Then you can sort of stagger releasing some of your posters and bits of information, and keep the message consistent so that you've got the same visuals across all your different communication platforms. So if it's on your website, make sure the poster is the same as what goes on Twitter and what goes on Facebook and what goes up in your clubhouse. That's quite important, so people know what they're looking out for, and that it kind of reinforces the message, if you like. So I think those milestones are really important. That can also help with your ordering of supplies. You might have to order specific items in plenty of time. Like our paint needed a bit of a lead-in time, so you need to get that ordered well in advance. We've had a look at the task priority sheet. It's good to do a task priority sheet. I quite often do one of these, an A3, a laminated A3 size, and then you can pin it up on the wall where all your signing in stuff is, and people can tick the jobs are finished. If you photograph that at the end of the day, you can put that on social media and you can say, look, we've done all the jobs we wanted to do, and then next time people will see that, and it makes people a bit more interested in what you've been doing. It makes it a bit more alive, if you like. Volunteer sign sheet. Essential to have one of these so you can work out how many hours your volunteers have been around. It's a really good currency for your members to get more people to come. If they realise that there's been such a lot of time given to the club, it makes other people more keen to kind of want to join in with that, if you like. And it's also useful for funding applications because you've got data and statistics for how many volunteers, how many people, different people came, what their postcodes are. If they're members, you'd know that. You might have to have a more sophisticated sheet if you wanted more in-depth details about how far people have travelled and stuff. But it's quite useful for funding applications. If you're going for match funding, that would, you know, if we could have got £3,000 match funding for that, we'd have been really happy. Oh, we have got the risk assessment on there. I didn't notice that before. So there is the sample risk assessment. Now we've just got fairly straightforward things on there. Hazards from contact with sharp or damaged material, because we were doing a lot of plants and brambles and things. So we had to make sure people had the correct safety clothing, which is always essential. Mowing. Now, we did have people mowing. Now, obviously, we weren't going to let our volunteers mow, but people were mowing. So we tried to keep other people out of the way, and we cordoned off the area so that people weren't in the same area as people mowing. And strimming, because that can be quite hazardous. You don't necessarily think, but a strimmer can flick up stones. So if you've got people working in the proximity of that, that can be dangerous. Hazards with dust, which can pose quite a hazard to health, so you need masks for that. Slipping is always a problem because it's always raining, isn't it? So you've just got to be extra careful, make sure the areas are cleaned and restricted while they're being cleaned. And there's more explanations on that one. Right, what has the impact been on our facility? It's been quite amazing, actually. What we've noticed is that people are a lot tidier. I don't think people were untidy, but they weren't quite as mindful, because there was a lot of, it's not even particularly like rubbish, but things used to get left out a lot, and people didn't take their drinks bottles in if they'd been on the long jump pit, and we'd go over there, there'd be like half a dozen drink bottles. You're like, just tidy your rubbish up. It's little simple things. People have stopped leaving things out. Everything's a lot tidier. People are putting all their equipment away after training, and our volunteers have moved over to be more regular volunteers. We've got people offering to work and are working in the tuck shop and just generally doing more jobs. The environment of the club is a lot cleaner and a lot tidier. Behaviour change has been quite a big impact. As I said, that's stopped people leaving their things out, and they're putting their kit away and keeping a lot tidier generally. It's made a big difference. It's only a little things, but it makes a big difference to the general environment. So our next steps, we're gonna organise more tidy up days. We're planning a spring tidy up day. We're hoping to do 3 a year. We had hoped to have a pre-winter one, but the rain really just put the kibosh on that, really. So we're going to have a spring one when everybody's starting to come out of hibernation. Once the clocks go forward, that's when we did the last one at the beginning of June. Retaining our new volunteers, we're hoping that we're going to build on that. The volunteers that we've had are still around and still offering and doing jobs. We're hoping to kind of develop that and turn that into more of a friends of of the facility, which is going to work a little bit like a Friends of a Park. So we've got a group of people who just maybe do little jobs and volunteer to do jobs and just keep on top of the general everyday niceties and running of the outdoor space, get more plants up, get more things planted and bulbed so that the whole thing looks nicer. We're going to organise more social events at the end of our season. We created a thank you celebration event for all the members, which was a big thank you for all the work everybody had done. We had basically a party and we put on food at a local hotel, which was really well attended. We had over 130 people attended that, which was pretty good for sort of September evening at the end of the track season. So most of the money that we're going to raise from what I mentioned earlier, our gazebo cafe, what we do in our gazebo has been really the driving force of getting all the volunteers up and running, because in cross country it started off 2 or 3 seasons ago when it was really cold, and we just said it'd be really nice if we had hot chocolate. So we said, well, we can do hot chocolate. We just bought water, the hot water flasks. We bought a couple of those, and we buy hot drink material, so coffee and tea and all that kind of thing. And we provide hot drinks and cake to our athletes at cross country and all the parents and all the supporters. And what we do is it was free at first, and now we do it for donations. So people can have a hot drink and a piece of cake for a donation of a recommended amount. It's not much, maybe £1 or £1.50. And all of that money at the end of the season went towards our celebration event. And all the money from this season will go towards a social event that we'll arrange some point in summer. So that keeps people thinking about the volunteering. It keeps people thinking about other events that you're doing, and it keeps that kind of social aspect of the club really strong and really going. And in fact, I didn't go to an event recently because I can't remember why I didn't go, but we didn't have the coffee or the cakes there, and there was quite a few complaints, which was really good. Not mean complaints, but just like people like, oh, we were expecting cake. So we're definitely going to carry on with that. Survey to membership. Yes, sorry.
Oh, sorry, because I was going to say, you highlighted the gazebo cafe. Just probably one element to touch on was the kind of building the rapport with potential new volunteers when they're having that coffee and cake. Kind of an opportunity to. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, well, having the coffee and the cake means that people stop. Basically, so they'll stop and they chat. Everybody's got to know each other a lot better since we've been doing that, and it means you can open a conversation with people. And quite a few people, we've had a few new volunteers recently for our YDL management team, so that's a different level of commitment really than just coming along to a tidy up day. So just because you can have conversations with people and you find out what their interests are, and you can sort of hook them in with more of the same, if you like, and then you see them week on week, and they understand that people, everybody's working really hard just to make the club better, and they want to be part of that going forward into the future. It's really nice. Is that helpful?
That's lovely. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Yeah.
So the one thing that it says on this list, survey to memberships, that was the one thing that I did not do after either of our tidy up days, and I was a bit cross when I realised that I should have done a feedback form for people. So I think it's quite important that you do a feedback from all your volunteers, so you find out which bits they liked about the day, which bits they didn't like, if there's anything you could do better, because we're all learning all the time. We're trying to improve, we're trying to make things better, and we need other people's input to do that. You can't do it on your own, and I think people are starting to understand that. So I'm going to be adding a feedback form next time we do a cleanup event. We're also hoping to do some sort of small, smart surveys to our members. The one really big thing that came out of our communicating with the posters and on social media is we realised we didn't have a direct way of contacting all our members when we wanted to, in the way that we wanted to. And you're always going to miss, if you're using the traditional ways, you're always going to miss people. So we were planning a new membership system, and it gave us a bit of impetus to get that in place a bit sooner than the next membership year, which would have been next April. So we've got that up and running as a result of realizing that we had some gaps in our communication, and we've actually managed to send out our first membership email to our full membership now, which was to invite them all to the AGM, which was last week. And as far as we know, most people have got it. It seems to be working. People are getting on there, and it seems to be working quite well. So that's a major benefit for us. And that really came out of all the volunteer days. Right, what's the last one? Oh, that went quickly, didn't it? So thank you. Any questions? I'm sure I've missed loads of stuff, so I'm really sorry. I've been talking a bit quick.
No, I think you've covered that really, really well, Rebecca. So a fantastic job on that. So thanks for your time. I can see Anya's typing at the moment, so we'll just wait. So what I'll do is I'll bring the question up onto your screen now.
Okay.
So you should be able to see that.
Did all your volunteers come from your existing member base? No, they didn't. Some of them were parents of new members, and some of them weren't members and are now members, which is really good.